Hey folks, Mike Shea from slyflourish.com and twitter.com/slyflourish, here with another episode of Sly Flourish's Lazy Dungeon Master Prep. As we have in previous shows, I will be going through the steps of the Lazy Dungeon Master while preparing for my Tomb of Annihilation game, which I run every Sunday. I'm also running another game on Wednesday, but I don't stream the prep for that because I'm usually at a coffee shop with a notebook somewhere. If you happen to be on Twitch, please say hello. I've got my little chat window open and happy to talk about all things D&D while we go through the various steps. If you've been watching previous episodes, you'll know that my group has been going through the city of Omu and most recently has gone to the Fane of the Night Serpent, where all of the Yuan-Ti are. I had a particularly interesting ending in our last game, and kind of a little disappointment, which we can talk about a tricky bit. That's something pretty hard to deal with, which is what do you do when a particular character has a particular arc of the story, and then they're not there when that story arc completes, which is what happened before. So let's get our game notes ready. We're gonna set up a new set. I'll copy over last week's. I get a common set of questions every time with this. One question is, who made the overlay for my little Twitch stream? And that was done by Eric Vulgaris, who I met at Gen Con a couple weeks ago. That was very cool. The text editor I'm using over on the left there. There is Markdown. I'm so good at this. You can Google it. There is a preview of the Lazy Dungeon Master. If you go to the YouTube channel, you can click the link, or you can take this link. I will add it to the chat right now so people can click it and get the preview of the Lazy Dungeon Master. We'll be going through the book a little bit on this show. Handouts for Tomb of Annihilation, which I continually print and then forget to bring, but we will do it now. While we're sitting here, no, we'll do it later, and then I'll forget again. That's okay. And then we get into the steps of the Lazy Dungeon Master. And I'm just going to clear stuff out so that we've got a fresh slate. And that way we've got a fresh set. I will save this. This is the 19th. All right, so that is all saved. So I see 13 watchers, but I don't see anybody chatting in the chat. What are you guys thinking about when it comes to D&D these days? And by the way, is my channel coming in okay? Can you hear me all right? Can you see me all right? Is anything weird going on? Let me know. So we will start off by looking at the steps of the Lazy Dungeon Master. All good. Thank you, Mitterby. I love Twitch names. I love just sitting and trying to pronounce Twitch names. Evil Twin Mason says, you are all bots. That's okay. I'm a bot too. So we're all in good company. There is a non-0% chance that we're all stuck in a simulated world anyway. There's actually pretty decent math to say that we might be. No evidence, but some math. So who cares? The Lazy Dungeon Master. Let me switch over. Look at that. So, if you happen to be a backer for Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, things are going very well. We just got the most recent draft of the layout, which includes all of the art, and that's what I've got over here on the left. And Scott Gray and myself went through it, and we had a bunch of little small things to fix. And that is now back in Mark Radle's hands, who's doing the final version of the edits. Then we'll take a look at that, make sure everything's cool there, and then it should be ready to go for the PDF. In the meantime, I am also working on the ebook version, which is just about done. I've got a couple of things I want to throw in the end, just little bits of marketing for other books that Scott is editing. And once that's set, then the ebook will be out. So I expect I would expect that before the end of August, the digital versions of the main book for Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master will be available to backers. I don't know how long it'll be, but it probably won't be too long until it's available for purchasers as well. It's on the RPG Now. So we will see. So let's take a look. So the steps of the Lazy Dungeon Master include lots of talk there, and that art, great. That's Esmeralda the Lich. She has a spinal column on the front of her tunic and also a spinal column in the back because she has her own. That's interesting. So the steps include review the characters. There are 8 steps in the Lazy Dungeon Master checklist. These are probably more than you might need, so you can always feel free, and you will see that I tend to skip a few depending on what you've got already, where you are, and what you are comfortable with. If you're already comfortable with something, you probably don't need to prepare it, but if you're not, then you should. There are probably a couple steps that are always worth doing, which I'll talk about. And one of those steps is reviewing the characters. Who are the characters? We do this first so that we have them in our mind, so that we're thinking about them when we're designing the whole rest of the adventure and making sure that we're putting them first, that they are the focal point of our adventure. Our own story doesn't matter. The world doesn't matter. The universe doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is what surrounds the characters, and what can they affect and what will those effects do. Second most important thing, I don't know if it's the second most, it might be the most important thing. I don't have a priority for these. Probably, I would say, if you're like really pressed for time, probably the strong start is more important. Where is the game going to start? What interesting thing is going to occur, and how is it going to grab the attention of the players and go, oh my god, what the hell just happened? Or wow, we're playing D&D. It's just you just want to start with a bang. Think James Bond's introductions. Freaking fighting KGB agents on a ski slope and then going off a cliff and then pulling out your parachute and it's the Union Jack. That's the kind of thing you want to have happen at the beginning of a D&D game. Outline potential scenes. This is an optional step. What scenes do we think will occur? We do this if we're really open-ended and we really don't know what's going to happen. It can help to say, well, these are the things that could occur. In my other game, for example, they were in Omu, but they weren't really sure where things are going to go. So I wrote out they could go here, here, or here. And then that way in the beginning of the session, after they had their strong start, and then they're kind of like, okay, where now? I said, well, you have a few options, including this, that, and the other, or anywhere else that you want to go. I call that the 3+ infinite options. You can see that on slyflourish.com if you Google 3+ infinite options. And what was my point? So if you kind of know where things are going to go, or you don't think it's going to matter too much, or you feel like you have a handle, you don't have to do the outlining potential scenes, but sometimes it can help. Defining secrets and clues. This is probably the next most important thing, and I think is worth doing no matter what. What are the 10 things that the characters can discover in your next game? This probably takes the longest of all of the prep that occurs. But it's really valuable for you to get a handle on what's happening in the world and what's important. It's not over prep. You're not writing reams of background material. But you have these 10 fortune cookie sized things. They could be bits of history. They could be secrets about NPCs. They could be, just things that are going on that the characters don't know about. What are the 10 things that characters could discover? And a key, as bolded in this statement here, is that they're abstract from their discovery. You don't know where they're going to find them. They could find them because they picked up an intelligent sword, or they interrogated a kobold, or they looked at a mosaic on a wall. Lots of different ways. They could discover them in lots of different ways. And the nice thing is, while you're running the game, you can improvise how they discover it. So secrets and clues are a way to prepare to improvise. To me, like next to a good solid set of random names that you have on a piece of paper is secrets and clues. We got some chatter here. Let's see. Strong start is a must. I'm glad you agree. I love confirmation bias. I'm very happy of confirmation bias. End on a cliffhanger. Yeah, I've done that too. There's arguments for and against ending on a cliffhanger. We were just watching Critical Role and Matt Mercer ended on a cliffhanger, and we thought that was fun. And I've definitely done it. In fact, I ended on a cliffhanger today, which you'll see. I'm getting a lot of texts. Let's see if my mom's watching the show. She watches the show and then tells me that my hair looks really nice. No. So, Pixelscapes, my friend Jen. I always find it tricky to have a strong start if there's some safe urban or headquarters environment. Ambushes. Yeah, so this is a good one, Jen. The strong start doesn't need to necessarily be something that directly affects the characters right then. It can be a parade. The great parade of bulls is happening outside. It can be that a new hero, an old veteran hero, has come to town. It doesn't need to always affect the characters, and it doesn't always need to be bad. Like I tend to start like with you're attacked by something, because it's easy and it gets everybody, fired up. But it can be just a situation that sort of is the event. A comet appears in the sky, or there's an earthquake, or a sinkhole forms, or a building is on fire. Lots of different ways, and good or bad. So it's just sort of like, what's the thing that sort of grabs the attention of everybody right then? Any interesting scene, but it's got to be specific. Like I posted a tweet and said like, what? Let's pretend. Yesterday I'm working on a new project. And I said, I want to come up with 10 strong starts. Like my creative exercise is going to be 10 strong starts that I can start to work with. And I wrote down 10 and I offered up to Twitter saying, hey, what are your strong starts? And some of them are great, really specific, really interesting things are going on. Some of them are like, the king wants the characters to go explore an old graveyard because his ancestors' remains have been missing. That's not a strong start. That's a adventure hook. A strong start is they're arrested. The King's Guard comes and in full armor and arrests the characters and drags them in front of the king. Well, they're not actually arrested. They're being conscripted, and then that's like, wow, what just happened? So, a book of just strong starts, fantastic locations, secrets of rock. That'd be interesting. I don't think I'm going to do that. But, the idea of an entire book of strong starts. Yeah, I don't know. It's not bad. And actually, I'll give you a hint. The Lazy Dungeon Master workbook will have a whole bunch of random tables that you can combine together to create a whole bunch of random strong starts. And also, the Dungeon Master's Guide has some really good stuff about strong starts in it. Rewind as a strong start. Big battle and then rewind at the beginning. I've heard somebody else did this. So like, you're fighting the big boss in the beginning and then it's like, oh, how did you get here? The only problem is now you have a truth. Now you have a truth that you have to make true, right? If you start at the end and then work forward, you're now railroading yourself back to that starting scene. And that could be tricky to do. It's not impossible, but it could be, you have to give it some real good thought. There's a lot of things that seem like great ideas. And then like, as you go, you're like, ugh. And, like one of them is the collection quest. If a lich is trying to collect 5 things in order to build his new, staff of, control, the staff of global control, the players only need 1, right? Like if he, there's all or nothing collection quests, I call them. And if you have an enemy or if the characters or the villain have to collect all of something, that's a real problem because your story is circumvented the minute one of them gets one of the items. It's a little interesting in Tomb of Annihilation. You have those 9 cubes, and somebody has to get the 9 cubes. But different groups, have them. So you want to make sure that there's always like fuzzy ways for people to either acquire everything or that you actually don't need everything in order to get forward. I did this in a Dark Sun campaign. A priest was trying to resurrect Kalak, the Dragon King of Tyr, right? And he needed these artifacts in order to do it. Well, he didn't need all of them. He only needed like 4 of 8. And the party had to like go around and make sure he, tried to stop him, but he would always sort of get something. And he had steps that the villain had steps that he could take to ensure that even if the party was stopping him, he wasn't ever completely stopped until the end. And that made for a stronger, like what happens if the lich can't get one of the items? What do they do? You can't just keep attacking the party in the bar, like Jen said. I'd imagine the strongest mid-campaign session starts have close ties to what's going on. So tough to grab in no context one from a list. But examples help with the overall concept. Yeah, and I got lots of examples. There's lots of examples in Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. There's a whole chapter on it. And also there's the random ones from Lazy DM Workbook. And if you want to see other strong starts, you can take a look at Fantastic Adventures, which has strong starts for each of the campaigns. Pardon me. All right. We talked a lot about Secrets of Clues. We'll talk more about it. Fantastic locations. What are the interesting places what are the scene backdrops that will grab the interest of your players when you're running the game? Another thing that's hard to improvise. What are the cool bits? Giant skulls piercing out of the earth, weird obelisks, ancient altars upon cliffside drops. They're hard to imagine, and those are all pretty stereotypical, right? So you want to spend a little time and come up with interesting ones. If you're running a published adventure like Tomb of Annihilation, they usually have them in there, so you don't generally have to worry about them too much. I'm not going to worry about them today, for example. But if you're running your own adventure, it helps to have ideas about what are the interesting places. And usually one fantastic location per 45 minutes of gameplay is not bad. It's not a perfect model, but it'll get you close. And a fantastic location has an evocative name, like the Bridge of Bones, the Bridge of the Dead Dragon, and then 3 interesting aspects like spiny bones and creaking bridge and howling abyss. 3 interesting things that you can sort of tells you what it looks like, and when you describe them, tells players what they look like, and also gives players the options for their characters to interact with them. So that's kind of fantastic locations. Important NPCs. Who are the main NPCs that are going to show up? What are their names? And what is a character archetype from popular fiction that fits them? Really interesting discussion last week on Twitter about instead of just keeping the archetype in the back of your mind, you can actually just describe it. So you can say, like, you meet the bartender, think Al Swearingen from Deadwood. And everyone's like, oh, that guy, right? Or think, you pick a character. Kathy Bates is always one of my favorite characters. Imagine Kathy Bates, is the owner of the inn. We don't do a lot of important NPCs because we end up improvising a lot of NPCs during the game. Relevant monsters, if you're running a session like, fighting Yuanti, it helps to say what Yuanti are going to show up and what should I know about them, maybe review the stat blocks, but also review the flavor text. What makes these guys interesting and unique, and that can feed into your secrets. It can help you run them interestingly during the game. So it's always worth kind of reviewing what monsters are going to run. And sometimes it's random, and if it's random, then you don't have to worry about it too much. Again, published adventures usually cover a lot of this. Magic item rewards. What magic items are people not missing exactly, but like what's on their wish list? What generally are characters looking for? Or are you going to throw some random items in there? And are any characters sort of getting neglected when it comes to magic items? 5e is definitely low magic compared to like other 4e where magic was all over the place. So you don't have to do it a lot, but it kind of helps. Magic items are one of the few things that a DM usually has complete control over, but characters and players really love. So it's worth spending time thinking about magic items because of that fact. So those are the steps. It's a loose outline. It's flexible. You'll see, hey, look, there's another great piece of art. Esmeralda the Lich with her giant miniatures. She likes the big minis. And we are going to do it right now. Wow, I can't believe it's 20 minutes gone by just me talking about that. What's going on in chat? Collection quests work way better when the thing can't be stopped, but it can be weakened. Yeah, so the idea of like, if the villain got all 8 pieces, they would be unstoppable. But if they still have 5 pieces, they can go forward. So you kind of are weakening them, but not stopping them. Step Back History says, my last session, I dropped a fantastic location between point A and B, and it wound up being really interesting and advanced the story. Yes, I always love to throw a fantastic location in the middle of a random encounter so that it's instead of like you're in the jungle and you get attacked by Grung, it's like you're in the jungle getting attacked by Grung, but there's a half-buried statue of Ubtao that's been defaced. So you could kind of put these sort of interesting things that are there, just like the Weathertop in Lord of the Rings, or that stairwell with the eagles on it that they fought the Urukai in Fellowship of the Ring. There's an interesting bit of history there. You look at that and you're like, humans made that, right? Like you see the big eagles and you're like, that's Gondor, I think, right? Using actors to describe NPC is a solid way of framing an NPC quickly. Yep, that's why we do it, because we're lazy, and you could do all the other traits and everything like that. But I don't, because I'm lazy. Using actors only works if you and your players are into movies, though. That's true. So sometimes you get it, but other times, even if like I don't know, I haven't really tried it much of saying like, hey, it's like so and so. But many times, like even if you get 4 out of 5, it's better than 0. Like they can kind of describe it. One person can kind of describe to another, oh, he's real gruff and he swears a lot, or whatever. So it's worth considering. But yeah, you also don't want to alienate particular character or particular players because they don't happen to watch Battlestar Galactica or something. So let's go back to our. That's weird. Let's go back to our main session and review. Step Back History says Table Fables has a D100 charts for quick personality trait. I believe the Dungeon Master's Guide, the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide, also has a lot of stuff about generating NPCs. A lot of traits and things like that you could sort of mix and match and use as improvisation or for inspiration. And that all works fine. I don't have any problem with that. I just find that I can usually wrap a whole bunch of traits around somebody by grabbing a character from a movie that a whole actor has filled out. If you say like there's an assassin and he's like the main character, the Robert De Niro's character in Heat. He's real quiet and calculating and always kind of his eyes are always looking, and he's got wide, so he's kind of checking everything out. But he's really, really smart, and he's no plan whatsoever to ever get arrested again. And knows all the criminal elements around here. That would be a cool character, and maybe people that get it. One of the reasons not to describe it to the players is that if you do, and you might alienate some of your players who don't know the character. But if you know it, then you could just describe it. So that's a reason not to mention the archetype that's going on. So, who are my characters? I have a few different characters, and I have a few that are out this session. Smoke, the Tabaxi Ranger. I can never get the good backstory for him. Gabriel / Tharmond is the Asimar whose soul was taken, and his actual soul is now being fed into the soul engine, but Tharmond is the soul that was captured by a hag and is now embedded in him, so now he is Tharmond, who's got bard powers. Punchy, the Kenku samurai, always wants to fly. He's had some interesting. So he's been touched by Acererak. I can't type. Acererak, right? They pronounce it as Acererak. Warryn, the gnome druid who wants to be a big beast. Ogechi, who warlock tied and key to the door to. And Huitzaline, paladin of Ubtao, who wants to smite false gods. That's interesting. Step Back History says World of Warcraft's new expansion is an island that is basically Chult. They already did one. They had another island jungle with dinosaurs and stuff like that. A few expansions ago. I haven't played WoW in a while. I kind of got tired of WoW. The treadmill finally ground me down. So I have. Let me talk about where our session ended last time. They went into the Fane of the Night Serpent, and they fought. Thanks to you guys in chat. They fought a really interesting mutated Hydra who's like some of its heads had already died, and it had like this diseased bite, and one of the characters got diseased, and all sorts of really interesting stuff. That reminds me that Secrets and Clues, who got diseased? I think it was Punchy. Zugtamoy. Nice. Punchy can hear the voices of Zugtamoy. And maybe can see things. Maybe this disease is not so bad. Ooh, I like this. A Last of Us zombie. I don't know. I only played Last of Us for a little bit. I know it's like the best game ever, and I totally blew it off. I suck. I own it. It's sitting on my PlayStation. Too busy doing D&D stuff. Okay, so they went into the Fane and the Night Serpent. They fought the Hydra. They killed the Hydra. They did get bit, and Punchy got poisoned by it or diseased by it, and it hasn't gotten rid of it yet. So he sees like these vines and stuff growing on him. I forget what they did with the idol. There was an idol to Zugtamoy that they had, and I can't remember if they threw it in the river. I'll have to ask him. I don't remember what happened to the idol. I think it might be at the bottom of the lake. or they might have kept it. But they killed the Hydra, and then they continued to go north, where they saw Yuan-Ti, who were not threatening. The Yuan-Ti said, our Lord wants to see you. And they're like, oh. So they were like floating in the boat discussing it, and they're thinking, like, should we just attack these guys, or should we just sail away, or do we go and see them? What do we want to do? And the Yuan-Ti, these two Malicens, are watching them. And finally they say, okay, we'll go in. And they go in, and there they are in the throne room of Ras Nisi. And he's sitting there with his big sword, and he's got a huge bodyguard, this veteran bodyguard who's like a Yuan-Ti pitmaster type. And he's got the I forget those crazy Yuan-Ti that aren't real smart and are almost all serpentine and act as guards. Brood guard. It's 3 brood guards. So it's 3 brood guards, 2 Malicens, Ras Nisi, and his bodyguard. And a woman, a Yuan-Ti pureblood, who was one of Ras Nisi's concubines. That's the one that's in love with the bodyguard. So they're like, wow, we could get into a fight here. So Ras Nisi says, look, here's the deal. I've got a cube, and I'll give it to you. But in return, you have to bring me the Black Opal crown. If you promise to do this, I'll let you go, and I'll tell you more information about the tomb, and I'll give you the thing. And they're like, let's talk about this. And then one of them is like, man, if Huit Zeline was here, there's no way we would make this deal. I think for Huit Zeline, we have to fight them. And they're like, are you sure? Like, this is a lot of dudes. And then they saw the eye contact that the bodyguard made with the concubine, and Punchy went over and grabbed her and said something like, threatened her, right? Said like, maybe we'll just, or said something like, well, if this goes bad, we'll kill her. And Ras Nisi's like, I don't care what you do to her, right? You could do whatever you want. You can have her. I don't care. And meanwhile, the bodyguard is like tensing up. And then I forget, they tried to charm the bodyguard. I don't know if they charmed him or dominated him. They might have. I think they dominated him. They hit him with some kind of like friends or something, but they essentially got the bodyguard on their side, and the bodyguard then attacked one of the Malicens. And then it was this huge melee with the bodyguard fighting to try to get to his love, while the party is fighting off the other Yuan-Ti. And the bodyguard is just slamming down Malicens one right after the other, just hacking him to pieces. And finally, his charm breaks and everything at some point, and he grabs the woman and runs off like a Frazetta painting and steals their boat and is sailing off on their boat. Like, hey, that's our boat! And the bodyguard and the concubine are sailing off to live a happy life. And they fought everyone else, and it was down to the wire, but they killed Ras Nisi. So now they were in the throne room of the lair of the Night Serpent, the Fane of the Night Serpent, with Ras Nisi dead, his Malicens dead, the 3 brood guards dead, the bodyguard is gone, and the concubine is gone. And here comes the Night Speaker. What's her name? Let me look it up here. Fanthaza? I want to say Fanthaza. That sounds right. Yes, Fanthaza. So Fanthaza shows up, right? And she says, she looks at Ogechi. Ogechi is the character that has a tie to the Eshowdow, and they all now know that the Yuan-Ti believe he is the key to opening the doors to get to the Night Serpent. So she comes in and she sees all this, and she looks at dead Ras Nisi, and she looks at the party, and she bows to them and says, we have a lot to discuss. Yes, the Yuan-Ti are no joke, and the PCs did kick some ass. Ras Nisi, I also beefed up Ras Nisi. I gave him legendary actions and legendary resistance, because by the time the bodyguard was gone, he had already, like, the bodyguard's gone. He was a hero, I forget what, a champion, right? So he was really tough. But he was killing Malicens. So he killed at least one Malicen and wounded another, which got the Malicens mostly out of the way. So really, the party was facing 3 brood guards and Ras Nisi, and it was 5 of them, I think. And they're pretty tough characters. They're like level 8, so they know what they're doing. Is there a lazy DM's guide to converting a monster to a boss? Yes, there is. Are you ready? Are you ready to write this down? Because it's real quick. Double its hit points and give it 1 extra attack action as a legendary action every turn, and give it legendary resistance, and you're done. And that's actually going to be tougher than a solo would be. So its challenge rating technically goes way up when you do that. But like for Rosnisi, I gave him 1 extra sword attack between turns. I think I also gave him Misty Step. Like I wanted him to be able to zip around the room a little bit and not get pinned down and killed. So he had sort of an ability to, because he has a bunch of spells. So I just gave him Misty Step as one of his spells, which he used, and then he just beat the crap out of people with his flaming sword. I also maximized the damage on the sword, so he did a lot of fire damage every time he hit with that thing. I wanted to feel the flame tongue. So step back. Does that answer your question? Double the hit points. Give it 1 extra attack action, not a full round action. So if they get 3 attacks a turn, they only get 1 attack on the legendary turns. Giving Monster Misty Step or Far Step is my go-to as well. Yeah, Misty Step is really, it's kind of cheap. You really only want to give it to characters where it makes sense that they have it. Because giving everybody Misty Step, like big brutes don't have Misty Step, and it's just like you're just screwing people out of opportunity attacks. So better is give them more hit points and let them take opportunity attacks. Is more fun. Yeah, legendary attack every round and 3 resistances. Yeah, basically, you can give them like 3. I mean, yeah, 3 legendary actions, and they get 1 attack as a legendary action. Is a pretty good step. That's technically more damage than they'll do. Yeah, and you tweak the double damage thing. That's up to you. If you double the damage, it's way like, so when they make a legendary creature in the normal design, it still has the same amount of damage that it does. They're just spreading the damage out between turns. So technically, like Rosnisi, let's look up Rosnisi here. So Rosnisi, look at all the stuff Rosnisi gets, right? So Rosnisi is challenge 7, which means he's the equivalent of 4 7th level characters theoretically, and that's an even fight, not a hard fight. So he normally gets 3 attacks, right? And they could be bites, constricts, or flame tongue attacks. If you were to make a solo version of him without changing his challenge rating, he would essentially get 1 of these attacks, and then the other ones would be added as legendary actions. Because his damage output would still be the same. It's just whether he does it all at once on his turn or whether he spreads it out during a round. I think that, particularly when you have somebody like Rosnisi, where they're going to be a lightning rod and you want them to be powerful, go ahead and knock their challenge rating up and give them, let him have 3 attacks on his turn plus a flame tongue attack between turns. You might, or constrict, you could shake up his attacks, essentially give him 1 extra attack action. The lazy way is just give him an extra action in between turns. Maybe not all turns, but some of them. Does he actually have, yeah, so he has Misty Step. So I didn't even cheat. And somebody's like, man, he Misty Stepped like 7 times. I'm like, yeah, look at all the spell slots he has. He can burn all those spell slots. He also tried to polymorph somebody. That's the other advantage is if you give him legendary actions where he can attack, he can also cast a spell and attack 3 times on 1 turn, 1 full round because of his legendary attacks. And then legendary resistance helps make sure he doesn't get totally pinned down. So I hope that answers your question. That sounded more complicated than it is. That my way is, and then I'd give him a lot more hit points. I usually I'll double the hit points to 250, and then at the right thematic point in the battle is when they beat him. So his actual hit points are 127. He'll certainly last at least that long, but I might give him more hit points just to last a few more turns, which is cheating, but we're here for the story. You might also let him, if you want to, let him cast a cantrip. I think he's level 11, so his firebolt will do 3 dice damage. And if you want a badass version, it's not really a solo version, but if you want a badass version, then you max their damage. I tell you, maxing damage on monsters is my new favorite trick. And they hit so hard, and people are so afraid of them. I like doing it. I like scaring players. And frankly, a bite that's 5 piercing plus 7 poison, that's 12 damage is not scaring anybody. But 7 plus 12 damage, that's 21 points of damage instead of 12. 21 on a bite attack is scary, right? And think about a flame tongue, right? He attacks for, he's probably attacking 2-handed, right? So 8 plus 7, 15 damage on a flame tongue attack. Not terrible, especially since he gets 3. But you know what's scarier is 13 slashing damage plus 12 fire damage. Now we're talking, 25 damage a hit is what he was doing. And when he's doing 25 damage a hit, people are like, bam, bam, bam. So I like that. I like hard hitting guys. And I don't think monsters hit hard enough for their challenge, especially these guys that are above a certain challenge. Setback History says, WotC seems to underestimate how much output PCs have to level 5. They don't underestimate it, but they're not accounting for 2 major things. One is feats are optional. So they are not accounting for feats, which can matter a lot when you're talking about a great weapon fighter paladin who has power attack, right? Like that combination means you can have a paladin that's doing 120, 130 points of damage. And if you think about it, without feats, that plus 10 on a hit goes away. They still have the other ones. But that's it's probably a good 30% less damage without feats. The other thing is they don't account for magic items. Magic items are not optional, but they're not accounted for in the math because they need to matter. So it means that when they tune monsters, they're tuning them roughly for characters who don't. Yeah, sharpshooter, gunslinger. Oh my god. Yeah, I just got sharpshooter with my archer, and it's bad. Every time I do it, the DM is like, "Can you describe how you're doing 45 damage?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I have sharpshooter." I'm like, "Oh yeah." So, so they don't account for stuff like that. But I had a good conversation with Jeremy Crawford, which is now available up on YouTube. Let's see if I can go find this. I will. My channel. Here we go. Here is the. Pretty sure this is the right URL. That is my. Let's see. I'll add this to. So I had the opportunity to talk to Jeremy Crawford about. Make sure that's the right URL. Yeah. So Jeremy Crawford and I talked a lot about this stuff, and he gave me permission to maximize damage, saying it's really mean to do, but you're not outside the design. So like, yay, I'll maximize damage. It makes me happy. So they fought and killed Rosnisi. So here's the problem I was talking about earlier. Problem number 1 is that the character who actually wanted to kill Rosnisi wasn't there. That was Huitziline. Kirk is the player. And he's been hunting Rosnisi, and now he's dead, and that kind of sucks. But I was like, well, I can't change the whole game because he's not there. So I don't know what to do about that. I don't have an idea. Like I could do some sort of side thing, or like he could, have the spirit of Rosnisi is still around or something. I don't know what. And then the other problem is the guy who was Ogechi, the player of Ogechi, Joe, isn't here this week. And he was the one that bowed, or to whom Fanthaza bowed to and said, welcome, welcome. We have a lot to talk about. So what do we do there? So I have an idea. I'll throw it out there. But let me ask in chat. So I have a situation where I have a character who is known to the Yuan-Ti as being the key to opening up the gate to the Night Serpent, the lair of the Night Serpent. And the player's not there. So what could I do? I'll just tell you what I'm going to do. So what I'm thinking of doing is that, they're not good. Like they worship him kinda, and they're in awe of him kinda, but that doesn't mean they're friends. And it doesn't mean they're going to say, oh, everything you want we'll give you everything you want. But what she might do is say, she might grab him and she'll like reach out her hand to him and also like kind of charm him. And when she touches him, she kind of, her shadowy mist sort of surrounds them. And she turns to her other Yuan-Ti followers and says, the rest are yours. Go ahead and kill them. But, the key and I have a lot to discuss. And boom, she teleports away. So now she and Ogechi have teleported off. And I'm going to write a whole little side thing in email because the player Joe is going to be gone for 2 weeks. So I can email him about them, and I have this idea that like the two of them will show up at the door, or they won't be actually at the door, but sort of her dreamscape of the door, and let me show you what's there, and let me tell you about what you've got, and I have to come up with a reason why is it compelling for him to open the gates to go to the lair of the Night Serpent, right? Like that could be really profound. And then in the meantime, our regular players are now getting attacked by more freaking Yuanti. But their leaders are gone. They had 2 leaders and both the leaders are gone. So maybe they can work something out with whoever's left to say what's going on. And really, they just need to grab the key. They need to grab the key and leave. There's one of the cubes is being held by the Yuanti, and they could sort of break the backbone of the Yuanti, the Yuanti stuff, and maybe they'll just go explore. So I think the strong start is going to be. That sort of seems like a strong start. Good enough for now, right? So the scenes that'll take place really are a couple. Do they stay or do they go? Grab the cube and leave. I don't know what they're going to want to do. We'll find out. I'm trying to think of some way that like Ross Nisi's not truly dead. Like maybe he has a phylactery or something, but I don't know how that's going to work. It kind of matters what Huit Zeline wants. I'll have to talk to him about that. So the other one is the Red Wizards have a couple of keys themselves. So will they finally meet with the Red Wizards, or are they going to go to other shrines? Because really this whole thing is, there's 3 big things that are going on in Omu. Red Wizards are hunting for cubes. The Yuanti are harassing anybody that's showing up, and getting the cubes yourself and then getting through the door. Put the thing the PC wants right now behind the gate to the Night Serpent. Oh yeah, what does that character want? It could even be the charm magic forcing them to thinking it's there. Step Back History asks, do products like Eberron and Ravnica books do anything for me? Yes, they do. I would love to run another Eberron campaign. I don't know about Ravnica. I'm just not a magic guy. I don't really know anything about the world. So probably not. I'll buy it, of course, because I buy everything. But I don't know... I'm at the point now where like I'm really invested in the Forgotten Realms. I've spent a lot of time reading Sword Coast Adventures Guide cover to cover. I've run all these hardbacks in the Forgotten Realms, so I'm very comfortable there. And I don't really need like a whole other fantasy world, but I'm sure it's got cool stuff in there, and I'll take a look at it. Eberron, I might run a short campaign for my other group. My other group, my Wednesday group, we play tested. Waterdeep Dragon Heist, so I'm thinking that we might take a break and run an Eberron game as well. There's a whole bunch of good Eberron content out there. The Guild Adepts have put out a bunch of Eberron stuff, so that might be fun. I'm not sure, but yeah, Eberron. I love Eberron. I've run 2 campaigns in Eberron now, and really enjoyed them. I ran a 3rd edition Eberron campaign, and I ran a 4th edition. No, I guess it was a D&D Next. I ran a D&D Next Eberron game. That was all pirates. It was a whole big mashup of stuff, but Eberron was part of it. I love that it says like, apparently I'm holding out for an Al-Qadim hardback is considered a sexual topic. I kind of like the moderation in Twitch. That's funny. All right, secrets and clues. So what else is going on? The Red Wizards have 2 of the cubes. Yeah, Step Back History says Al-Qadim is sexy. I guess so. The red wizards fear going into the tomb and would prefer someone else do it. Red wizards want documentation or any alchemical from the soulmonger. What is the name of the red wizard lady? Valindra, right? I like that. Valindra Shadowmantle's an apprentice. She was kind of off by her own. She doesn't really like traveling with the other wizards. She gives them orders and then lets them run, and she goes off on her own. But she also has these 2 stones in her pocket. She can throw them out, and they turn into stone golems, and that's her protection. 2 stone golems and a lich. Pretty good. Enjoy Twitch while I sit here and type. I have lots of ideas. The nice thing is I have 2 groups that are both in the same location, so a lot of my ideas are kind of circulating among the 2. But really, you have these 2 factions that are in Omu, the Red Wizards and the Yuan-Ti. JH the Hurricane says the King of Feathers is so cool. Yeah, the King of Feathers, every time I think about it, the King of Feathers gets worse. Now it's a legendary Tyrannosaurus. So Step Back History, you were asking about how to make a legendary monster or how to make a boss monster. And so I'll take like a regular T-Rex. I have no idea how to spell stuff. Oh, I'm terrible. I can't spell dinosaur names. Tyrannosaurus Rex, right? So you have a normal Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is challenge 8. It gets 2 attacks, one with its bite and one with its tail. I would give it a legendary action that it can use its tail attack between turns, which is really hard, right? Hitting people for 20 damage. Maybe you can use 2 legendary actions to do an additional bite attack. I would also give it a legendary action to turn invisible and a legendary action to Misty Step. And in this case, it's telepathic. It's psionic abilities that it has. It also has this brilliant feathers. You might give it like it might hit its like its feathers might all go crazy, and that would be like a hypnotic pattern. That might be kind of cool. With its, we'll probably go with, I guess it's a charisma, so the DC would be pretty low. Although I have a feeling that a feathered Tyrannosaurus has a charisma higher than 9. So, what's its normal? Invisible teleporting T-Rex is funny. Is a funny thought. Yeah. But it could be scarier than hell. Right? It's like Predator, but imagine the Predator, but huge, So I love that. I love that idea, and I think it actually has that in the book. I think if you look up King of Feathers, it's close to that. T-Rex can see invisible creatures and can innately cast Misty Step. Legendary resistance and summon swarm. Oh, so that's the other thing you can do is it summons swarms. What does it do? Wow, it breathes wasps. That's pretty great. I guess we'll do that. T-Rex with a Mind Blast cone. I might have it do like instead of wasp breathing, I might switch that out with a what's it called? No, it's not coming to me. The crazy broken ability that dazzles everybody. That'll come to me. I'll give it that instead. But that also sort of hits the psionic, like it's scintillating feathers, like freaks everybody out. What the hell's the name of that spell? Come on, someone in chat, help me out. There's a crazy spell. It's like 2nd or 3rd level, and it dazzles everybody who sees it, and it's a big area of effect, and it's totally over. It's pretty OP. You guys are gonna make me look it up. Hypnotic pattern. Duh, I just said it, didn't I? Hypnotic. Probably DC 14. About right. A little low. Yeah, charms everybody and then makes them incapacitated. Like, oh, and then he just eats them. Bomb, bomb, bomb. So it'd be badass. So maybe he could do that as a legendary action. That's pretty, and it still has to concentrate on it. So, yeah. Yeah, that's nice. Gotta go. Paladin Hulk, how's it going? It's going well. Sometimes secrets come quick. How many secrets do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, 2 more secrets. Secrets are hard. Secrets are the hard part of D&D, or of the lazy DM process. What else is going on in Omu that they are interested in? I think I already said that 2 of the cubes from the Red Wizards are gone. The kobolds reset the traps in the trickster temples. Reset the traps in the trickster temples. No. They don't know anything about it. Secret behind the Night Serpent gate. Yeah, so we already kind of know that Ogechi is the key to the gate because he's an avatar of the gatekeeper who would be the Eshowdow. There are actually two Eshowdow, 2 brothers. These huge giants, shadow giants from the Shadowfell. And they are sort of the avatars of the Night Serpent, and they control the gate. And behind the gate is the Night Serpent itself, that wants to get free and be released. The interesting question would be, why would that be a good idea? Like, why would the Night Serpent coming out be better, than, and I guess like, maybe a sect of the Yuan-Ti. Maybe they think the Night Serpent isn't going to come out and eat. It will destroy the new god of death. So maybe that's it. It's like, look, the creature that is being released, that's growing in the tomb, the creature that's being birthed by Acererak is worse than the Night Serpent. And the Night Serpent is probably, if it gets created, the Night Serpent is the only thing that can beat it. Right? It's the only thing that can beat it. And yeah, like, the naysayers believe that the Night Serpent is going to come out and eat the planet. That's not really true. It protects the planet. Right? The Night Serpent is the guardian of the planet. And yeah, it'll blot out the sun. And yeah, it'll open up, it'll kind of tear a rift between Shadow and our world. But people will still be people, cities will still be cities, people will still be around, and, we won't all be devoured by a new god. So that's why you want to release the serpent. Like that, that seems like there's no other way. Like, Ubtao turned his back. He's not coming back. So the blending of the world of Shadow and the blending of the world of Shadow and our world, and having the guardian of the Night Serpent is better than the alternative. Even if you don't happen to like the Night Serpent, it's still better than getting eaten, getting completely devoured by a new uncontrolled god of death. Step back history is the Aztecs, which a lot of this is based on, had an idea that the world needed massive sacrifices to keep it from ending. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I mean, the idea, like, they still sacrifice. Like, the Night Serpent is not benign. It's not benevolent. It needs food too, but it's still, and you may think it's terrible, but it's not as bad as what's going on down there. I think that's the threat. Fantastic locations might they explore? I'm not going to bother with this. There's so many that are in Omu already written in there. What NPCs might they meet? I might need another another Yuanti that they might meet. Looking for some Yuanti names here. Yuanti names. Which should I like here? Talish. Talish Star Singer, who speaks of the void, Void Singer. She's one of the concubines. She could say, okay, so what's a good character archetype for her? I see somebody of sort of royal. I don't know. The second sister from Downton Abbey. What was her name? Who are the sisters? Edith. I don't know if I really need any other NPCs. Monsters, we got more Yuanti. King of Feathers, perhaps. Red wizards, thugs, mages, and spies. Magic items, whatever's in the book. Maybe a random one if it's too much. She yearns to break free and explore the world. I don't know what her deal is. She's not hostile. She doesn't know which leader to believe. So I think I've got a fair bit ready here. Let's, I feel comfortable with this. This makes me feel like I've got what I need. I know where it's going to start. The characters can figure out where to go. Oh, sorry, just banged the mic. So I got a lot of interesting secrets for them to discover. A lot of Red Wizard stuff, considering the fact that they haven't actually seen the Red Wizard. So I don't know. Oh, there's a Red Wizard spy in here, isn't there? That's an important one. I forgot this. That if we go to... Where's the search? Ishmekel. Step back history. So the last couple times I did lazy prep, I did it and then already barely consulted it during the break unless there's a lot. Well, I missed that. Barely consult during the session. Is this normal? I have done these sessions just now and then totally forgotten to send myself the notes. So yes, it is very common to not, particularly because I'm running my game in a half hour. No, an hour. I'm a little early today. I'm leaving in half an hour. So I'm running in an hour. So because I just did all this stuff, I'm remembering it all. So yeah, it is not, I don't think it is uncommon. It's not uncommon for me to not check my notes. I like to have them handy. And it doesn't help to hurt to review them right before the game's about to run. But it is not uncommon to do it. And I think that's fine because if you're able to run your entire game without referring to any notes at all, that means you had a pretty good handle on it. So I think it's the act of writing it down. You hear this all the time, right? The act of writing it down is in itself a useful step. Yeah, so I guess a better question, step back history, is did you remember it or did you bail on it and not use it at all? It's a pretty good question. It's something I didn't really get into in the book. Sending myself my game notes. Okay, so you just kind of referred to it and grabbed it. Yeah, I think that's a common. I think that's a common approach. I don't think that's. I don't think that's abnormal, and I think that's still. I think it shows. I mean, probably again confirmation bias, right? I think it shows sort of the value of this, like going through the process and keeping it slim enough that if you can remember it all and still run your game just fine, I think that's a strong way to go. I think that it certainly makes life a little easier if you don't have to refer to a whole bunch of notes while you're running your game. Now the other part, I don't know if you're running a home game or if you're running a game for the books. I know I've got the book in front of me, so I'm always referring to the adventure itself when it comes to like specific locations. And I think if I think, like I say, I ran a homebrew game at Gen Con, and I think I had my notes in front of me, but I don't think I referred to them that much. So yeah. And I think a lot of it is just solidifying this stuff in our brain, right? Making things like we're making ethereal. I think one of the reasons why people I get lots of people on Twitter that talk about how the Lazy Dungeon Master really helped them out. And I think just having any, I'd love to say like, I landed on the exact right system. Lucky me. But the reality is like probably having any framework that you can kind of use and that's simple enough is valuable on its own, right? And makes you feel like you have a lot of control. And it's sort of that, how do we structure stuff that's so wild and chaotic, And if we structure the stuff so that we can remember it, then it helps us. I think there's definitely something. I think there's definitely something to that. So it has been an hour. I am going to run off. I'm actually, one thing I forgot to mention is I'm going to bring some Dwarven Forge with me. I got my Dungeon of Doom stuff, and I made a cool layout for the throne room that I didn't use last week, so I'm going to try to use it this week. So I got to go get that ready. I want to thank everybody in chat for hanging out and chatting. And some really good, insightful conversation, as always. I want to thank everybody on YouTube who's watching. And I will see you guys in a week. So have a wonderful week and enjoy some D&D. Thank you very much.